joining the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held today. We have on our committee is myself, Dylan Bressy, Mayor Jackie Clayton, and Councillor Grant Burke. Yeah, see, this thing is not right.
And Councillor O'Toole, if I could just point out that Councillor Bressy is not here.
Yeah,
today.
and Councillor Bressy is not here, and I apologize. It is actually Councillor Thiessen that is on this committee, not Grant Burke. With that, we will start off. We have no delegations today, but we do have item 3.1, the Director Services Area Report. And Ms. Wendy Hughes, you take over for Chris.
Good morning. Thank you through the chair. Community Social Development reports the Seniors Tea held on June 9th was a huge success with 245 seniors in attendance. So it was well received and a great event. Enforcement Services reports the positive ticket program is gearing up to this kick off the summer, as well as to reward those youth and children who are demonstrating good safety practices and citizenship. So that is going to be running until September. Enforcement is also gearing up to relaunch the Safe City Road program to target dangerous driving habits as we get closer to the end of the school year, and to relaunch the new summer season as well. Safe City Roads allocates one peace officer to focus on hotspots throughout the city. As well, enforcement is also engaging in daily bike patrols to hotspots areas throughout the city to engage citizens and foster safety-focused atmosphere. In GPREP, the ICS 300 training is being held as we speak, as well as they are conducting meetings with the Grande Prairie Friendship Center to discuss how we can work together, if required, to provide evacuees support in the event of a disaster response. The RCMP attended the Municipal Policing Advisory Committee, which was held Wednesday, June 15th, and the next meeting will be scheduled for mid-September. And for the mobile outreach team, they have hired a needle mitigation worker, which will be starting June 27th. This is a 3-year grant-funded position with hours of operation from 8 until 4. To provide services, please call the mobile outreach team at 780-830-7094. And that is my director's report.
Thank you very much. Was there any questions from anybody on committee? No? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Just my question, is Northreach also picking up needles with the mobile outreach team in addition?
So at this point, we're actually having a few meetings. We do have a new executive director for Northreach and trying to determine if they're going to be also providing services after that date.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to comment, the Police Advisory Board, I can tell you that there's a good selection of people on there that are very open and speak at the meeting. They give their input, and I think it was a well-chosen group of people to be at that committee. So I think we're planning on having a spokesman from the committee come to council here in the near future. With that, yep, go ahead. Mayor Clayton.
Just a question, could you tell me, is there a status or an update on the permanent inspector position? Do we know right now? I'm thinking Mr. King is still interim, to my knowledge anyways.
Yes, correct.
Do you happen to have an update on that?
Yes, through the chair. So they will be starting in July.
Okay, perfect. If once they hear, if you yourself or Director Manuel could ask them to come introduce themselves to council, that'd be great.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. There's no other questions, and I'll move on down the agenda. And item 3.2, The Indigenous Healing Center. Miss Angela Sutherland, can you speak on this?
Good morning, everybody. So at the April 4th City Council meeting, there was a delegation that had come forward, Mr. James Fraser, to bring forward the identified request to potentially do a healing tent within city limits. His desire was out of the fact to reduce dependence on the RCMP and help provide services for Indigenous people to support their healing. As per direction by council, administration went back and consulted a few key stakeholders for some preliminary conversations. So those included the Native Counseling Center, the Friendship Center, and a few other individuals, just to gauge and learn a bit more about healing tents and some of the cultural protocols that may be required to undertake something like that. So in those conversations, administration identified that there was indeed support for a healing tent, and what administration learned was that there was differences in healing tents and healing centers, and so there was a lot of learning there for me in terms of seeking consultation on that. So in terms of the desire to have a healing center or tent, there is support for it, but administration strongly recommends that we consult with the Indigenous community and that they decide through consultation and proper protocols on how that looks and where it should be situated. So with that, that is the conclusion of my report. If you have any questions, I'd be more than welcome to answer them.
I've just got one question before anybody else comes in. I drove by Charles Spencer School yesterday, and there's a teepee out there. Is that noted as a healing teepee?
Through the chair.
Do you know?
Yeah. Well, my understanding it was they will have some ceremonies in there, but I don't think it's not intended to be continual use or more predominant use like the one we're suggesting here. It's partly ceremonial, partly symbolic, partly traditional. So it's kind of a combination of all that. So.
Yeah, and I can just update at both the public and the Catholic school boards are doing National Indigenous Day celebrations at Charles Spencer today. They're starting in the morning and allowing children to pick options, everything from lacrosse, bead making, they're doing fish fries, they're doing painting and smudging, they're teaching children traditional healing methods, and that is part of National Indigenous Day.
No, it just looked kind of neat actually where it was, and people were in and out of there. So, thank you. Was there okay? Go ahead, Gladys.
Ms. Sutherland, could you identify next steps that you anticipate to see roll out?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, administration recommends that if the city decides to be an active partner in exploring this type of setup and working with the Indigenous community to do a healing tent, it is recommended that we would consult, and we would have to consult elders and do proper ceremony on bringing people together and sitting down in a circle with city representatives to discuss opportunities for appropriate land and where that type of tent could be situated. So it's really important that it comes driven from the Indigenous community to provide that recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Thiessen and then Councillor Bosch.
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole. Thanks, Ms. Sutherland, for the report. I guess, I'm all game. I think if we're doing a healing tent or teepee, it should be led by our First Nations people, and we should try to be an active participant, especially if they come asking us for help and stuff like that. This is not a process that we should lead. I guess I'm just a little, part of me is confused because the motion that Councillor Lainers made back was to reach out to the appropriate stakeholders regarding the potential of a healing center within the city limits and bring the discussion to the appropriate standing committee. So I'm all for a tent, but I think maybe we're thinking a little small. I think when we're talking about a healing center, I mean, I've been to an actual healing center outside of Saskatoon, and it's a building, it's a structure. It helps with cultural reintegration, learning languages like Cree again. It teaches about lifestyle and living of our First Nations people, as well as the history. So it's part museum, part living quarters, part cultural immersion, and that's sort of what I was thinking we might get back for this. Of course, there's a big cost to that, and again, it would come from our First Nations people. But has administration put any consideration as to what that might mean, rather than just the healing tent that was requested by our delegation?
Okay, thank you for the question through the chair. Indeed, there's two different things we're talking about here. So one is the Healing Center, and in my discussions with the preliminary stakeholders, they identified there is a huge support. I think it's been for many years in talking about a proposed project for a healing center. And like Councillor Thiessen, you've said that a healing center would involve a much broader discussion because it would include infrastructure, a building, something that's withstanding. But there definitely is support in my discussions with other stakeholders. That again would probably I would recommend that we bring forward another consultation with the same process in mind to have that discussion with appropriate stakeholders, which would include the Indigenous community and the elders, and to discuss how that would look. It has to be driven by them.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I agree 100% wholeheartedly. And if they were to come and request the actual physical structure, I'd be willing to entertain like that. I'm not sure about the rest of council, but I think it's a good start. So happy to hear that you're continuing that engagement process.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair O'Toole. Ms. Sutherland, with this healing tent or TP, would that mean this is self-directed for the clients that use it, or would it be in conjunction with like programming and staffing and costs that are additional than just putting up the tent?
Through the chair, in my discussions with some key Indigenous representatives, it looks different for different people. So in terms of in my discussions with Indigenous tents, my understanding is that anybody in the community could use it, depending how different elders also operate it differently. So I don't think it would necessarily involve set resources for staffing. It would be up to the community to decide how they want to use it. In terms of the tent itself, I mean, some of the considerations would be, some healing ceremonies, they have tents or teepees where they put it up and then they move them and they travel around different communities. I mean, in here particularly, again, it would be up to discussion with the Indigenous community. If they want it standing, administration recommends it be somewhere where, if it's going to stand on its own all the time, then it should be somewhere where it's secure. As you know, it could be open for vandalism or things like that. So again, it would be up to our discussions with the Indigenous community on that.
Thank you. I think we all have lots to learn on this, so I'm looking forward to the progress.
All right. I see no other questions. Thank you very much for your... Go ahead, Mr. Thiessen.
Mr. Quest to speak. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just one quick question in regards. I know that there's the calls to action for the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. Has administration looked into, or are we aware of any grants that might be able to be applied to the construction or building of a healing center that the city or maybe even the First Nations community like Métis Local or the Friendship Center could apply for?
Mr. Clayton? Jackie Clayton? Mayor Clayton? Sorry.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. I would just suggest, Councillor Thiessen, that we get to a point where we're discussing what we're considering before we ask administration about potential grants. This is a more full conversation. Right now, the report identifies the potential for a consultation with the Indigenous community. And I just don't think that, you could try to put forward a motion for further direction, but I think at this point, we're just looking for consultation before we start going down the paths of grants and buildings, etc.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just good to be aware of what other grants are out there, and if we've got a bit of a head start and this progresses over the course of a couple of weeks or months or years, that we're aware of that. Funding pots don't last forever, so I was just seeing if we're aware of it.
Okay. I would like someone to deal with the business on this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. I would move that committee accept this report for information.
That report, the motion is in order, so I call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, there was no correspondence. We have one item in other business, and that is bike safety. I don't know who brought that up.
I mentioned it.
Okay.
I'd like support if I can speak to it before. I've had 2 calls this week on people being driven by and people getting clipped by bicycles going too fast on the bike paths. One incident happened downtown where one of our citizens went to go to a store, looked at the door was locked, turned around, and a bike just missed her on the street. So I'm just wondering, and I, in all defense for protective services, that give them enough time to be able to do some research on this, as there's been a death in Kelowna in regards to people getting hit, and there's I think 2 or 3 communities in the province have also had to install bike safety on paths. And with the advent of e-bikes, they're not allowed to use power on the paths. And so I personally have been passed on both sides, and the person that phoned me was passed on both sides on the bridge, and it scared the living daylights out of him. And he's afraid that if he gets hit, he's suffering from getting cancer treatments. So I think it's important that we ask administration. I know I can't make a motion to do that, but I would like to recommend that we ask administration to come back with a report. And the only reason I'm asking it to do it now is because we're off 2 weeks in July, and it will take, by the end of August, it'll be the earliest time to implement something. So I'm just wondering if I could get Chris Manuel to address this for me, or Mayor Clayton's there.
Sorry, thanks, Chair O'Toole. I support your concern. I think that it's great that our trail system is very, very busy. However, I've seen on many occasions situations that are not necessarily safe. People are excited to be outside. And right now, I guess maybe what you're looking for, Councillor O'Connor, and just to confirm, is information on currently what our bike safety initiatives look like, and if there's signage out there that we're not aware of, if there's potential opportunity for enhanced marketing program to remind people of bike safety. And so if that's what you're looking for, then I'd be prepared to make a motion.
Thank you.
So I'd move that direct administration to bring back a report including the current bike safety initiatives and lay out potential enhanced bike safety initiatives that are available. Thanks.
All right. That motion is in order. So I would, when ready, call for the vote. So it's on your e-scribes. And that passes. And I'd like to thank you, Councillor O'Connor, for bringing this to our meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole.
Okay, we have no bylaw or policy review at this meeting, and our outstanding items list needs to be updated. So can you do that for me?
Thank you, through the chair. So item number 1199, the Canadian Mental Health Association property transfer request is on target. as well as item number 1201, old bypass enforcement is on target, and we can remove 1195 as it was spoken to today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole. I'd move that we approve the outstanding items list as amended.
Thank you very much. Call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. That is pretty much everything for this meeting. I just want to thank the administration for being here and making nice, smooth reports for us folks to understand and move on. So I call the meeting adjourned.